Hotty toddy, gosh almighty. Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels look to parlay immense offseason momentum into potentially an SEC title and maybe even a national championship. What is the most important game for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels in the 2024 college football season? Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. We're brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Guys, go to RHOBACK.com. Use promo code SECU to get 20% off your first purchase. That's RHOBACK.com. Promo code SECU to get 20% off today. The Ole Miss Rebels are here, folks. They feel like they've arrived. They've stacked up with talent. And I think it's safe to say this is the most talented roster in Ole Miss football history. Now, what will it mean for results on the field? Lane Kiffin and company, guys, they don't just have their sights set on a college football playoff. They've got their sights set on a national championship. And you know what helps a team and a program that's got those type of expectations, those type of goals, those type of aspirations? A friendly schedule. And let's call it for what it is. Ole Miss has got one of the more friendly schedules in the SEC. There's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC, but they've got one of the most manageable, I'd say arguably the most manageable in the conference. But there's landmines all over. There's trap games. There's difficult games. There's epic showdowns. What is the most important game of the 2024 season for Ole Miss, guys? And as we pull up the schedule here, like I mentioned, let's call it for what it is, okay? Ole Miss essentially gets a preseason. Like, you know how NFL, they have a preseason? Ole Miss virtually has a preseason. When you look at the first month of the season, guys, Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. With all due respect to those schools, come on, right? Come on. Either way, though, hey, Ole Miss will have a couple weeks to get the pieces together, right? Because that's the big question. How do all these transfer portal pieces, how do they mesh? But you look at this schedule, guys, as conference play gets going. You get Kentucky at home to kick off SEC play. Is that a difficult game? At South Carolina is wildly intriguing, right? Because of the Juice Wells storyline. At LSU the following week, another wildly intriguing game because of what happened last year and some of the smack talk that has taken place. We've talked about those back-to-back road games and how big of a deal those are. You get Oklahoma and Oxford. You get Georgia. You're at Florida in the Swamp, which could be a tricky game depending on what Florida is at that point in the season. And then you close out, of course, in the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. Again, guys, like I said, there is no question this is a friendly schedule. It's one of the most manageable in the SEC. But as I take a look at this schedule, guys, there's one game that jumps out to me as the most important game. And there's two that I went back and forth on. It's the game at LSU and the game against Georgia. And you start with that game at LSU, guys. And like all the other 12-team college football playoff contenders, there's wiggle room here. You don't have to go undefeated to make the 12-team college football playoff. You can go 11-1 and still get in. You can go 10-2, in my opinion, and still get in. I know there's some out there that say that, maybe a 10-2 Ole Miss, that's not good enough against that schedule. Guys, I do not see the day that a double-digit win SEC team's not getting in the college football playoff. So there's some wiggle room here. There is, but I think Ole Miss is looking to do more. Like, I think Ole Miss, their goal, their expectation, they want to go 11-1 or better. Again, if you look at the schedule, at LSU is going to be wildly tricky, guys, because LSU, I mean, if there's one game, if you could rank the desperation level to win games, maybe Bama's one, but I tell you, I think that Ole Miss game for LSU fans is right behind it because, again, the trash talk that has followed and how embarrassing that game was for them on the defensive side. So you're going to get LSU's best shot in that one in Death Valley. It's going to be one of the most raucous environments we get in college football this year. But, guys, my most important game for Ole Miss, again, Lane Kiffin, the portal king. They've added all these incredible transfers. Guys who were contributors and big-time ball players at the SEC level. They've essentially built, guys, like a super roster. It's the Monstars taking on the rest of the SEC, right? And the goals and the expectations in Oxford, guys, You can laugh or scoff if you want, but they're to win a national championship because that's how this roster's assembled. Now, I understand there's a lot to prove here. I understand that Ole Miss, it's an 11-win team a year ago, beat Penn State in that bowl game. It's an 11-win team. Even without the transfers, they were going to be really good. But I zero in, guys, on that game against Georgia because here's the thing. You didn't go out and get all these transfers, with all due respect, to beat Kentucky by more than you did last year. You didn't go out and get all these transfers to beat Arkansas by more than you did last year. You didn't go out and get all these transfers to even beat LSU by more than you did last year. You went out and got all these transfers to win a game like that one against Georgia and Oxford. That's where, to me, it all comes to a head, guys. And I know the big question, hey, they lost by like 45 points last year. Are the guys they added, even in the trenches, are they enough to make up for a 45-point deficit? I don't know the answer to that question, guys. But Lane Kiffin identified last year, hey, we're not physical enough in the trenches. We're not big enough. We're not strong enough. We got to change that. And they did it. They did it. Give credit. They did it both lines of scrimmage, especially on the defensive side, though. What they added in the front seven, better than anybody in college football, in my opinion. But this season for Ole Miss, guys, if we come into this season with the correct expectations for the roster they've assembled, which is it's not just good enough. 9-3 is a failure, guys, for this team. 10-2, I don't know that's really good enough. It's, if you go 10-2, it's like you had a good year, but did you really maximize the talent you brought on campus? I don't know that you did, right? And so I think for people looking at this schedule, when I look at this schedule, most important game for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's late in the season. You want to be peaking and playing your best football. That Georgia game is going to tell us a lot about, okay, Ole Miss is having a nice year. Are they ready to go on a run in the college football playoff? Like, even if you don't win, how do you play? How does it look? Is it a bloodbath like last year, or do we say, okay, Ole Miss, they absolutely upgraded across the board, and they should be considered one of the elites? Because up until then, guys, I mean, listen, I'm not throwing shade at LSU or Oklahoma, but Georgia is going to be a different level and a different beast, and we're going to find out, is Ole Miss ready to truly compete? Can they actually challenge for the national championship? Or are they going to be more of a one and done, or maybe make it to the second round of the playoff and get knocked out? But again, guys, I look at that Georgia game at Vaught Hemingway Stadium. This is why, if you're the Grove Collective, if you're an Ole Miss fan, if you're Lane Kiffin, this is why you made the investment in the portal over the offseason to go out and get the best players. You didn't boost and revamp your roster to beat Kentucky. You certainly didn't do it to beat Arkansas. You didn't do it to beat Furman or Middle Tennessee State or South Carolina or Oklahoma. You did it to win a game like this against Georgia. And so it'll all come to a head when the dogs come to town. We're going to find out what this roster is all about. We're going to find out, is this superstar roster, are they truly living up to the hype? Or was the gap too wide to make up in just one offseason, even with the portal additions? Also, what kind of college football playoff team are you? Are you going to be a college football playoff team that just gets there? Or can you get there and make some noise? That game late in the season against the Georgia Bulldogs in Oxford will tell all for the Rebels. So, guys, I pose the question to you. What's the most important game for Ole Miss? Do you agree with me? Is it that Georgia game? Is it a different game? Is it Oklahoma? Is it at LSU? You can make a great case. It's that game in Baton Rouge. When you look at this schedule, what's the most important game of the 2024 season for Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels? Guys, that's going to do it all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.